When the engineering team began drilling the tunnel, they suddenly encountered water hidden deep inside the mountain, bursting out with jet-like pressure, flooding the tunnel and creating a terrifying crisis. Switzerland's Gotthard base tunnel is called the Mount Everest of engineering. At 57 kilometers long, it's not only the world's longest tunnel, but at 2.5 kilometers deep, it's also the world's deepest. Why did this tunnel become an absolute necessity for all of Europe? How did the engineering team deal with falling rocks, rushing water, and air pressure powerful enough to shatter train windows? If you look closely at the map of Europe, you'll notice a massive wall of mountains running straight through its heart, blocking trade and travel for centuries. This wall is called the Alps. For generations, people crossed them through long, winding mountain roads, only to be stopped by snow or avalanches with no warning. Bridges were built, railway tracks were extended, but climbing steep mountain slopes was slow, exhausting, and time-consuming. Then a bigger problem emerged. Europe's growing economy demanded more goods moving between countries, far more than these zigzag routes could handle. Northern Europe's factories and Southern Europe's seaports depended on each other. Engineers had only two options: build even wider, more difficult roads over the mountains, or do something that had been considered impossible for centuries. They chose the impossible. They would dig a tunnel, not over the mountain, but straight through its heart, the longest and deepest tunnel the world had ever seen. But this mission was as terrifying as it sounds exciting. Deep underground, where the mountain's weight could tear through steel like paper, engineers knew they weren't just fighting soil and rock, they were up against forces of nature no one had ever challenged before. Challenge number 1, extreme pressure. The tunnel had to be dug beneath a mountain 2,500 meters tall, meaning millions of tons of rock would be pressing down on the tunnel walls at all times. Engineers dug small test tunnels first, and the mountain immediately tried to close them back up. Challenge number 2, extreme heat. At such depths, temperatures easily reach 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. No human can work in that heat for more than 15 to 20 minutes. If the cooling system failed, this tunnel could become a living grave for workers. Challenge number 3, water pressure. This wasn't ordinary underground water. It was centuries-old, pressurized water trapped inside mountain cracks at up to 2,900 psi, enough to blast through a concrete wall like a cannonball. This is why the world's most respected engineers initially declared, this tunnel simply cannot be built. They said the machines would break down in the heat, and how could workers even survive? On top of that, both sides of the tunnel would be dug 57 kilometers apart. And if the alignment was off by even 1 millimeter, both teams would be lost forever in the mountain's darkness, and billions of dollars would turn to dust. But for Switzerland, this wasn't just a project. It was a matter of survival. Every year, thousands of trucks crossed the Alps. Pollution was rising. The roads had hit their limits. Without this tunnel, Europe's entire trade system risked collapse. Switzerland made its decision. No matter the cost, this marvel would be built. On September 27, 1992, the project was officially approved. The scale of this project pushed the boundaries of human imagination. Total length, 57 kilometers, roughly the distance from Delhi to Ghaziabad, or Lahore to Kasur. All of it, 2.5 kilometers inside a mountain. Engineers had to dig from both sides simultaneously and meet perfectly in the middle. A single centimeter of error, and the two tunnels would never connect. To solve this, laser navigation, GPS, and gyroscopes were used to calculate exact drilling points on both sides, even accounting for the curvature of the Earth. To make the impossible possible, the world's most extraordinary tunnel boring machines, TBMs, were built. Their cutter heads were taller than a two-story building. The main TBM, named Sissi, was 450 meters long, nearly half a kilometer of machine. Yet even with all that power, it cut only a few meters per day. This wasn't just engineering, it was a 17-year test of patience. During excavation, approximately 30 million tons of debris were removed from the mountain, enough to build an entire new mountain. Hundreds of trucks worked around the clock just to haul it out. Every day, thousands of workers descended into the depths, where there was no day, no night, no phone signal, no fresh air. Just the roar of machines, the damp smell of earth, and an underground world where 2,600 workers lived and worked at a time. As machines pushed deeper, temperatures climbed. 30 degrees Celsius, then 50 degrees Celsius. This was no longer a construction site, it was an oven. Workers were limited to shifts of just 2 to 3 hours to prevent heat stroke. To fix this, cooling pipes were installed, running cold water from the surface throughout the tunnel. This became the world's first construction site where a survivable environment had to be created before construction could even begin. Cracks in the stone, sudden collapses with no warning, these became daily occurrences. Workers responded by immediately spraying concrete mixtures on affected sections, installing precast concrete slabs, and using steel rings to create an artificial skeleton, giving the weakened rock the support it needed. Then came the water. While boring through certain sections, a flood suddenly burst out from inside the mountain. Rock inside mountains isn't uniform. Some areas are extremely hard, others soft. And just as underground water reservoirs exist beneath the earth, water is also stored in mountain cracks. Under the mountain's enormous weight, this water reaches pressures of 2,900 psi, like placing the weight of a car on just 1 square inch. The solution? Freeze the water solid. Small pipes were drilled ahead of the boring machines and freezing liquid was pumped through them. After several weeks, the water inside the mountain turned to solid ice, and the TBM could bore through it just like regular rock. After boring through these sections, concrete lining was installed, and the freezing system was switched off. Engineers also added collection points between the concrete slabs and the mountain wall, so any remaining water could safely drain out without building up pressure against the tunnel walls. October 15, 2010. The eyes of the entire world were on Switzerland. Deep inside the mountain, 2,500 meters underground, 2 teams were separated by just a thin wall of rock. One question burned in every mind. Would 17 years of work pay off? Or would 57 kilometers of tunnel become a multi-billion-dollar grave? Then, Sissi's cutter head broke through the final wall. It was a historic moment for all of Europe. When the measurements were checked, the 2 tunnels were off by just half an inch across 57 kilometers. That's like threading a needle from 50 kilometers away. You might think the biggest enemies were rock and water. But the final, invisible enemy was air. When a high-speed train enters the tunnel at full speed, the air inside has nowhere to escape, creating a shockwave powerful enough to shatter train windows. Fortunately, this had been anticipated. Not 1, but 2 parallel tunnels were built, connected every few hundred meters by cross passages. Ventilation shafts were also installed to release the shock waves created by passing trains. Had this invisible force been overlooked, 17 years of work and billions of dollars would have been wasted. The idea for the Gotthard base tunnel was first proposed in 1940. Construction began in 1993. It took 17 years, 2,600 workers, and $12.5 billion to complete. The mountain above it is as tall as 3 Burj Khalifas stacked together. The excavated debris could form 5 Great Pyramids. Switzerland used it to create small artificial islands in Lake Lucerne. The TBM alone consumed enough electricity to power 20,000 homes. Finally, I want to pay tribute to the 9 heroic workers who lost their lives in accidents during construction and never came back out of the mountain. A memorial has been built at the tunnel entrance, so the world never forgets the true cost of this engineering marvel. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and share, and thank you so much for all your wonderful comments. See you in the next incredible video.